Good morning, growers, and welcome to the Growing Garden channel. I am Pietro Isolan, and today we are going to talk about 3+1 mistakes that you can unfortunately make in growing zucchini. The first mistake is about transplanting, and it has been highlighted so much in recent years. The mistake is to plant them all together at the beginning of the season. Instead, they should be put in, if possible, in a scalar fashion. To truly grasp the situation at hand, let us commence from the very beginning of the season. In the northern central region, we are referring to late April or early May. As we move further south, we can extend the time frame to late March or early April. However, the crucial criterion remains that the temperatures must exceed 15 degrees Celsius. Failure to meet this requirement, as witnessed this year, would result in planting them early in the season, around early May, when temperatures are still cold. Unfortunately, this scenario unfolded this year when I planted zucchini in early May. Although temperatures had risen slightly at first, they subsequently dropped to 10 or 12 degrees Celsius. Our regrets for this May season are evident, as the zucchinis had a challenging time thriving. Join me as we inspect them. Here they are, the ones I planted in this synergistic vegetable garden plot, mulched and covered with bark, as you may have seen in a previous video. They have only recently attained this exceptional beauty. Continuously throughout May, they remain tiny like this, facing immense struggles due to the unforgiving temperatures. Now, let us examine the other batch. These plants, on the other hand, are mulched with biodegradable materials covered by a tarp and appear even more stunted, especially after 5 years of implementing the synergistic approach, as the soil is incredibly fertile. This particular plant remains severely dwarfed. We shall observe it closely to see if it recovers. Although the next one appears marginally healthier, there is an undeniable indication that May did not provide an ideal start for their growth. This stunted specimen we observed earlier, and in a different location, one plant unfortunately perished. Today, we shall replace it accordingly. Now that we have addressed the timing of the zucchini season's commencement, let us explore how far we can transplant them in a sequential manner. Remarkably, here we can transplant them until mid-August. Allow me to elaborate why. Over the years, an intriguing pattern has emerged. Summer brought scorching heat waves and significant drought. Intense gusts of hot wind prevailed, which in this very garden originated from behind me. Despite diligently watering the tomatoes and zucchini, they suffered from the arid conditions. Consequently, plant activity ceased, only to resume in September when rain once again graced us. However, those plants could only experience a revival if they had managed to withstand the hardships of summer, ultimately requiring extra shading to safeguard them from the sweltering heat. Consequently, they began producing again in September and continued until early November. Nonetheless, these plants bore the wounds of their struggles. This explanation highlights the advantages of transplanting at a later stage. For instance, if we transplant in July and meticulously care for the young seedlings by watering them and providing ample shade, by September, we will reap the rewards of robust and healthy plants that will continue to produce throughout September and October. If the autumn months remain temperate enough, we may even have zucchini until November, resembling our experience from last year. To that extent, it is possible to design certain sections of the garden to accommodate zucchini plants well into June, July, and the beginning of August. Pondering it further, this mirrors the process of planting cabbage and other fall vegetables towards the end of July, allowing them to reach maturity by the time October, November, and even December arrive. So, should you find yourself running late with your zucchini planting, there is no cause for concern. Forge ahead and proceed with transplanting. It is never too late. Without delaying any further, let us take action and proceed with transplanting the 2 zucchini plants already prepared here. The fundamental transplanting steps remain unaltered. Moisten the seedling, gently break it apart, and if needed, reposition the roots slightly. Once completed, we create a hole to bury the seedling up to the level of its collar. We water with a little water and liquid fertilizer. So welcome to the 2 new zucchini, and we move on to the second. In regards to the second mistake, I made the decision to change my location and sit down because I neglected to take action against powdery mildew in a timely manner. Powdery mildew poses a significant threat to zucchini plants, so it is crucial to begin defending against it from the moment of transplantation in order to set the record straight. It is best not to rotate zucchini plants where powdery mildew is present. Now let's take a quick look at the available products. We have sulfur both in powdered and wettable form, as well as propolis, horsetail macerate, and sodium or potassium bicarbonate. Today, I have both powdered and wettable sulfur, as well as baking soda. Let's discuss the specific use of these two products. However, before we delve into that, it's important to note a general rule that applies to all these products. They should be applied once every 10 to 15 days during dry conditions, avoiding rainy periods. If it rains, the application should be repeated, as this helps maintain protection against powdery mildew. These products leave no residue and are completely natural. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that sulfur is not like copper, which is a metal. Sulfur is a mineral that decomposes in the soil. Even if used in large amounts, it is unlikely to acidify the soil because it is applied in very small quantities. Now, let's focus on how sulfur powder is prepared. It comes in a micronized form, which means it is a very fine powder that can be directly applied to the plant using a dusting machine. This is the smallest available model, but there are others that resemble chimney puffs. The sulfur is placed in the tank, and then a puff of sulfur is blown out and applied to the leaves. Shortly, we will head to the vegetable garden to administer the sulfur treatment. In contrast, wettable sulfur has a different consistency. As the name suggests, it dissolves in water. To prepare it, it needs to be dissolved in water at a dosage of 5 to 8 grams per liter, which is roughly equivalent to a tablespoon. I have already prepared 1 liter of water in the sprayer. Now let's add the sulfur and give it a good stir. I put the sulfur back in here that I have left over because I want to show you the color that the water takes. It takes a milky coffee color like this. And here is dissolved our... At this stage, the better option for sulfur would be either powdered or wettable form. Powdered sulfur is generally more immediately active and slightly more aggressive. On the other hand, wettable sulfur is preferable for long-term coverage maintenance. My suggestion is to alternate between the two types. Now let's shift our focus to baking soda, specifically sodium bicarbonate, which is the everyday baking soda used for various purposes, including the washing of vegetables. Alternatively, in winemaking, potassium bicarbonate can be used with similar characteristics and a few minor differences. In both cases, the recommended quantity is about a generous tablespoon per liter of water. Baking soda is a completely natural and non-toxic substance that leaves no residue. However, it is quite effective against powdery mildew. Now let us proceed to the vegetable garden and learn how to properly administer these treatments to our seedlings. Let's go to see how to give the sulfur powder. We will have to equip ourselves, as I said a moment ago, with a dusting machine. This is the smallest model, but in any case, even if we have that attached to the tractor, we should see that a puff comes out, because if too much comes out, we risk damaging the plant. So let's look in practice how it is. This is the correct amount. Again, this is the correct amount. Let's go and give it to the zucchini. A very crucial warning. Do not apply it during the hottest hours of the day. This is because when sulfur comes into contact with leaves and sunlight, it undergoes a reaction known as sublimation. Sublimation causes sulfur to transition directly from a solid state to a gaseous state without passing through the liquid state. Unfortunately, this reaction leads to a burning effect on leaves. To prevent damage to seedlings, it is advisable to apply the product in the early morning or when there is still a slight morning dew. Alternatively, apply in the evening when the sun is setting. Now let's discuss the application of the wettable product, whether it is wettable sulfur, bicarbonate, macerate, or propolis. Regardless of the product, the application method remains consistent. For small quantities, I recommend using pressure-based dispensers that build up pressure inside the container, allowing for a spray-like distribution. Ensure that you observe the impact on the leaves. Just ensure that they are protected when they begin to drip. This indicates that we are providing excess water. Simply cover the surface with droplets, and then we can move on to mistake number 3, which involves selecting the male flowers. Avoid picking the male flowers to prevent the absence of zucchini. And here it is, the male flower, as you can see, is attached to a thin stem. Instead, the female flower is on top of the new zucchini to the little zucchini, because the male flower has the function of carrying the pollen, which is here in the pistil. Almost see very well. Here it is. The pollen contains the male gametes that have to go to fertilize the female stalks. which are contained in the ovary of the female flower. The ovary then transforms and becomes the zucchini. Here you can see very well the female flower that has this pistil, this kind of structure. Instead, the male flower has a pistil only without male flower. The female flower cannot be fertilized and thus cannot produce the zucchini. To ensure a continuous supply of zucchini, we should selectively pollinate the male flowers. This way, we won't exhaust our zucchini supply. The key is to always leave some male flowers on each plant, keeping a minimum of 2 or 3. As for the female flowers, it's best not to harvest them. Otherwise, we won't have any zucchini to eat. Instead, we can harvest the male flowers, allowing the zucchini to grow to about 10 centimeters while they still carry the flower. In the beginning, I mentioned that we have 3 + 1 mistakes, but I actually meant to say that this is the 4th one. The mistake is letting the zucchini grow too much before harvesting them. When the zucchini becomes overly ripe, the plant channelizes all its energy into growing the already large fruit, thereby reducing the strength available to develop new zucchinis. Although the very large zucchinis are still edible, they lack the sweetness and taste of the smaller ones, especially those that are around 20 centimeters in length. They tend to become hard and resemble pumpkins with a tough skin and seeds inside. Furthermore, the larger zucchinis hinder the growth of the smaller ones. Therefore, it is advisable to harvest the zucchini when they have not exceeded 20 centimeters in length. The only reason to let a zucchini grow to a larger size is if we intend to harvest it for its seeds, which can be used for future propagation. In that case, we should select the most beautiful zucchini plant, allow it to reach full maturity, and then carefully collect, wash, dry, and store the seeds. That's all for this video. If you have any remaining questions on this topic, feel free to ask them in the comments section. See you next time, and happy gardening.